The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Catherine, the Princess of Wales, sat quietly in her private study. Her hands trembled slightly as she stared at the positive pregnancy test lying on the mahogany desk before her. After 3 beautiful children and years of public scrutiny, she never imagined this moment would come again. William had already left for his early morning engagements, unaware of the life-changing news waiting for him. Catherine touched her still flat stomach gently, overwhelmed by a mixture of joy, fear, and uncertainty. At 42, this pregnancy would be different from her previous ones. The doctors had always warned about the increased risks that came with age, and the memory of her severe morning sickness during her earlier pregnancies made her stomach clench with anxiety. She thought about George, now 11 years old and so responsible for his age. Charlotte, 9, with her spirited personality and infectious laugh. And little Louis, 6, still her baby in so many ways. How would they react to becoming big siblings again? The family had found such a perfect rhythm over the past few years, with each child settling into their roles within the royal hierarchy and their private family life. Catherine walked slowly to the window, gazing out at the gardens where her children often played during their precious private moments. The weight of royal responsibility had always been heavy, but adding another child to the equation would bring new challenges. The public's fascination with every aspect of their lives meant that this pregnancy would be dissected and analyzed from every angle. The press would speculate about everything from her health to the spacing between children, from the impact on royal duties to the line of succession. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother, Carol Middleton, reminding her about their lunch plans later that week. Catherine's relationship with her parents had been her anchor throughout her royal journey. She knew her mother would be overjoyed about another grandchild, but she also worried about the additional stress this would place on the family support system they had carefully built over the years. The morning sickness had already begun in subtle ways over the past week. The familiar queasy feeling that had plagued her during her previous pregnancies was starting to return. She remembered how debilitating hyperemesis gravidarum had been with all 3 of her previous pregnancies, requiring hospitalization and forcing her to cancel numerous royal engagements. The thought of going through that again while trying to maintain her royal duties and care for 3 active children felt overwhelming. Catherine moved to her private bathroom and splashed cool water on her face, studying her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her had changed so much since her early days as a royal girlfriend, then fiancée, then new bride and mother. She had grown into her role with grace and determination, but the constant scrutiny never became easier. Every outfit choice was analyzed, every public appearance was criticized or praised, and every aspect of her mothering was judged by millions of strangers. She thought about the recent royal engagements that would need to be reconsidered if her morning sickness became severe again. The upcoming overseas tour with William was particularly important for strengthening international relationships, but past experience told her that pregnancy might make travel impossible during the first trimester. The disappointment of potentially letting down the royal family and the countries they were meant to visit weighed heavily on her mind. Returning to her study, Catherine picked up a framed photograph from her desk showing her 3 children laughing together during a summer holiday. George's protective nature toward his younger siblings had always touched her heart. Charlotte's independence and strong will reminded Catherine so much of herself at that age. And Louis, with his cheeky grin and boundless energy, kept them all on their toes. Would adding another child to this dynamic enhance their bond or create new tensions? The financial implications, though not a personal concern for the royal family, would certainly become a topic of public debate. Critics would question the cost of supporting another royal child, while supporters would celebrate the continuation of the royal lineage. Catherine had learned to tune out much of the commentary over the years, but she knew that pregnancy hormones might make her more sensitive to criticism than usual. She began to think about the practical arrangements that would need to be made. The nursery would need to be prepared again, though they had kept some of Louis's baby items stored away. The security arrangements would need to be updated to account for another family member. The staff would need to be briefed and prepared for the changes that a new baby would bring to the household routine. Catherine's thoughts turned to her own childhood, growing up as the eldest of 3 children in a loving, stable middle-class family. Her parents had provided a wonderful foundation, and she was determined to give her children the same sense of security and unconditional love despite the unusual circumstances of royal life. Adding a fourth child would mean even more careful balance between public duty and private family time. The sound of footsteps in the corridor reminded her that the palace day was beginning in earnest. Soon, her lady-in-waiting would arrive with the day's schedule, and the carefully orchestrated routine of royal life would begin. But, first, she needed time to process this news and decide how and when to share it with William. Their marriage had grown stronger with each challenge they had faced together, and she knew he would be supportive, but she also understood the concerns he might have about her health and their family's well-being. Catherine looked once more at the pregnancy test, still hardly believing what she was seeing. This tiny indicator represented so much more than just another baby. It meant months of careful planning, medical monitoring, public scrutiny, and personal adjustment. It meant sleepless nights and feeding schedules, first steps and first words, school plays and family holidays. It meant expanding their already full hearts to love another little person completely and unconditionally. As she carefully placed the test in her desk drawer, Catherine felt a small smile cross her face despite all her worries. Whatever challenges lay ahead, this baby would be loved and wanted. This child would grow up surrounded by siblings who adored each other and parents who were committed to providing the best possible foundation for their future, royal duties and all. The unexpected nature of this pregnancy felt like a gift, a surprise blessing that would add new joy to their family story. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, preparing herself for the conversation with William that would change their lives once again. The morning sun grew stronger, filling her study with warm light, and Catherine felt a sense of peace settling over her initial shock and worry. Whatever came next, they would face it together as a family, just as they always had. William returned to Kensington Palace that evening after a long day of royal engagements, his mind already shifting from public duties to family time. He found Catherine in their private sitting room, curled up on the sofa with a cup of tea that had grown cold in her hands. Something in her posture immediately caught his attention. After more than a decade of marriage, he could read her moods and emotions better than anyone else in the world. "Rough day?" he asked gently, settling down beside her and placing a protective arm around her shoulders. Catherine leaned into his familiar warmth, drawing strength from his presence. She had been rehearsing this moment all day, but now that it was here, the words felt stuck in her throat. "William," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I have something important to tell you." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the pregnancy test, placing it carefully in his hands. The silence that followed felt like an eternity as she watched his expression change from confusion to recognition to complete amazement. His eyes widened as he looked from the test to Catherine's face and back again. Are we really?" he stammered, his usual composure completely abandoned. Catherine nodded, tears beginning to form in her eyes as she saw the joy spreading across his features. "I can hardly believe it myself," she whispered. "I took the test this morning, and I've been in shock ever since." William set the test aside and pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as if she might disappear if he let go. "This is incredible," he murmured into her hair. "I mean, we weren't planning this, but, Catherine, this is the most wonderful surprise." His genuine happiness began to dissolve some of Catherine's anxiety. She had worried that he might be concerned about the practical implications, but his immediate joy reminded her why she had fallen in love with this man in the first place. They sat together in comfortable silence for several minutes, both processing the magnitude of this news. Finally, William pulled back to look at her face. "How are you feeling? I mean, beyond the obvious shock. Are you worried about the morning sickness returning?" Catherine appreciated that he immediately understood her primary concern. "I'm terrified about that, honestly. The hyperemesis was so debilitating with the other three, and I'm older now. The doctors will want to monitor everything much more carefully this time." Her voice wavered slightly as she spoke about her fears. "We'll get through it together, just like we did before," William assured her, taking her hands in his. "And, this time, we have the advantage of experience. We know what to expect, and we know how to manage it. The children are old enough to understand when Mummy needs rest, and our support system is stronger than it's ever been." Catherine felt some of her tension beginning to ease. "I keep thinking about how this will change everything for the children. George is becoming so mature and responsible, Charlotte is finding her own voice and independence, and Louis is still adjusting to not being the baby anymore. How do we help them through another transition? William considered this thoughtfully. Maybe it will be good for them in ways we haven't considered yet. George has always been naturally protective, having another baby to look after might help him develop that nurturing side even more. Charlotte loves being helpful and teaching things to Louis. And Louis, well, he might actually enjoy having someone younger around for a change. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of running footsteps in the hallway outside their door. "Mummy! Daddy!" Louis's voice called out as he burst into the room, still in his pajamas. "I had a bad dream about monsters in my wardrobe." Catherine quickly slipped the pregnancy test under a cushion as William scooped Louis up into his lap. "It's okay, little man. There are no monsters in your room. Would you like Daddy to come check with you?" As William carried Louis back to his bedroom, Catherine was struck by how natural and loving he was as a father. Watching him calm their son's fears with patience and gentle humor reminded her that their family was built on a foundation of love and security. Adding another child to that foundation wouldn't weaken it, it would only make it stronger. When William returned, they continued their conversation in hushed tones. "We'll need to tell the children before anyone else finds out," Catherine said. "I remember how excited they were when I was pregnant with Louis, even though Charlotte was only 4 and George was 6. They're old enough now to really understand and be involved in the process." "What about timing?" William asked. "When do you think we should make it public?" They both knew that royal pregnancies were matters of public interest, and the announcement would need to be carefully coordinated with Buckingham Palace's communications team. "I'd like to get through the first trimester before we announce anything," Catherine replied. "I want to make sure everything is progressing normally, and, honestly, I'd like to enjoy this as our family secret for a little while. Once we announce it, our every move will be scrutinized even more than usual." William nodded in understanding. "That makes sense. It will also give us time to prepare the children and make sure they hear it from us first, not from some leaked story in the tabloids." The protection of their children's privacy had always been a priority for both of them, even within the constraints of royal life. They discussed the practical considerations that would need to be addressed in the coming weeks. Catherine's royal diary would need to be reviewed, particularly any overseas travel or strenuous engagements. The security team would need to be briefed about the pregnancy to ensure appropriate precautions were taken. Medical appointments would need to be arranged with the royal physicians who had supported Catherine through her previous pregnancies. "I'm actually excited about the idea of decorating a nursery again," Catherine admitted with a small smile. "We've gotten so used to having older children who need less hands-on care. There's something magical about preparing for a baby, choosing colors and furniture, washing tiny clothes, setting up the crib." "Do you want to find out the gender this time?" William asked. They had chosen to be surprised with all 3 of their previous children, but he was curious about her feelings now. "I think I'd like another surprise," Catherine said. "There's something special about that moment in the delivery room when they announce whether it's a boy or a girl. And, honestly, I think the children would enjoy the mystery and speculation." As the evening progressed, they found themselves planning and dreaming about their expanding family. William talked about how he could adjust his own royal duties to be more available during Catherine's pregnancy, especially if the morning sickness became severe again. Catherine shared her hopes about the kind of relationship their 4th child might have with their older siblings. "You know," William said thoughtfully, "this baby will grow up with 3 built-in protectors and teachers. George, Charlotte, and Louis are going to spoil this little one terribly." The image of their children doting on a new baby brother or sister brought smiles to both their faces. Catherine curled up against William's chest as they continued talking. "I love our family exactly as it is," she said quietly, "but, I have to admit, the thought of adding one more little personality to our chaos feels right somehow. Like this baby was meant to be part of our story, even though we never planned it." They spent the rest of the evening holding each other and talking about their hopes and dreams for their growing family. The initial shock and worry had given way to genuine excitement and anticipation. While challenges certainly lay ahead, they felt confident in their ability to navigate them together. Their love for each other and their children had carried them through many difficult times before, and this new adventure would only add another chapter to their remarkable family story. As they prepared for bed that night, both Catherine and William felt a renewed sense of purpose and joy. The unexpected pregnancy had reminded them of the precious gift of family and the endless capacity of the human heart to love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and considerations, but tonight, they were simply a husband and wife celebrating the wonderful surprise of new life growing within their family. 3 weeks had passed since Catherine discovered her pregnancy, and the familiar waves of morning sickness had begun to intensify. She found herself canceling smaller engagements and arriving late to breakfast with the children, who were starting to notice their mother's unusual behavior. The time had come to share their wonderful secret with George, Charlotte, and Louis. Catherine and William had chosen a quiet Saturday morning for the conversation. The children were gathered in the family's private sitting room, still in their pajamas after a leisurely breakfast. George was reading a book about aircraft, Charlotte was sketching in her art pad, and Louis was building an elaborate tower with his blocks. The scene was so perfectly normal that Catherine almost hesitated to disrupt it with life-changing news. "Children," William began, settling into his favorite armchair, "Mummy and I have something very special to tell you." His gentle tone immediately captured their attention. All three children looked up from their activities, sensing the importance of the moment. Catherine took a deep breath, her heart pounding with nervousness and excitement. "How would you feel about having another brother or sister?" she asked, watching their faces carefully for reactions. The silence lasted only a few seconds before Charlotte jumped up from her spot on the carpet. "Really? Really, truly? Are you having another baby?" Her excitement was infectious, and soon Louis was bouncing up and down asking, "When? When is the baby coming?" George, always the most thoughtful of the three, set down his book and walked over to Catherine. "Are you feeling sick again like you did when you had Louis?" he asked with genuine concern. Catherine was touched by his immediate worry for her well-being. "Yes, darling, I am feeling a bit unwell, but that's normal when you're having a baby," Catherine explained, pulling George close to her side. "The baby should arrive sometime next summer, so we have lots of time to prepare and get excited together." Charlotte immediately began planning. "Can I help pick out baby clothes? And can I teach the baby to draw? Oh, and we need to make sure the baby knows that I'm the big sister." Her enthusiasm made everyone laugh, including Louis, who was trying to process what this meant for his position in the family. "Will I still be the little brother?" Louis asked with a slight pout. William scooped him up and sat him on his lap. "You'll be a big brother too," William explained. "You'll get to teach the baby so many things, like how to walk and talk and play games. Being a big brother is a very important job." Louis's expression brightened as he considered this new responsibility. The questions came rapidly after that. George wanted to know about the practical aspects: where would the baby sleep, how would it affect their school schedules, and would they need to move to a bigger room? Charlotte was more interested in the fun parts: what games they could play with the baby, whether it would be a boy or girl, and if she could help choose the name. Louis, in typical 6-year-old fashion, asked if the baby would like dinosaurs and whether it would be allowed to play with his favorite toys. Catherine and William answered each question patiently, enjoying their children's excitement and curiosity. The conversation continued for over an hour as the children processed the news and began to imagine life with a new sibling. "We need to keep this as our special family secret for a little while longer," William explained. "Mummy needs to see the doctor a few more times to make sure the baby is growing healthy and strong. Then, we'll be able to tell everyone our wonderful news." George immediately understood the importance of privacy. "Don't worry, we won't tell anyone," he promised solemnly. "Not even our friends at school." Charlotte and Louis nodded in agreement, thrilled to be trusted with such an important secret. As the day progressed, Catherine noticed subtle changes in her children's behavior. George became even more helpful than usual, offering to carry heavy items and asking if she needed anything. Charlotte drew a picture of their family with an extra stick figure labeled "New Baby" and hung it prominently on the refrigerator. Louis appointed himself as Catherine's special protector, following her around the palace and announcing to the staff that they needed to be extra gentle with Mummy. That evening, after the children were settled in bed, Catherine and William reflected on how well the conversation had gone. "They're going to be wonderful big siblings," Catherine said, touched by their immediate acceptance and excitement. "I was worried that Louis might feel displaced, but he seems genuinely happy about becoming a big brother." The following weeks brought new challenges as Catherine's morning sickness intensified. True to form, she developed hyperemesis gravidarum again, requiring careful medical monitoring and adjustments to her royal schedule. The children adapted remarkably well to these changes, understanding when their mother needed extra rest and quietly entertaining themselves during her worst moments. George proved to be particularly helpful, reading to Charlotte and Louis when Catherine was too unwell to participate in their usual bedtime routine. Charlotte became Catherine's little caretaker, bringing her water and crackers, and drawing cheerful pictures to brighten her mother's difficult days. Louis, despite his young age, seemed to understand instinctively when his mother needed quiet time, playing more gently and speaking in softer tones. Catherine's medical team, led by the royal physicians who had supported her through her previous pregnancies, put together a comprehensive care plan. Given her age and history of severe morning sickness, they recommended more frequent monitoring and prepared contingency plans for managing her symptoms while allowing her to maintain some royal duties when possible. The secret keeping became a bonding experience for the family. The children delighted in their special knowledge, and Catherine and William found themselves drawing closer together as they navigated this unexpected journey. Family dinners became planning sessions for the nursery, with each child contributing ideas for decorating and organizing the baby's space. William made subtle adjustments to his own schedule, ensuring he was available to help with the children when Catherine's symptoms were at their worst. He also began laying the groundwork with their communications team for the eventual announcement, discussing timing and messaging to ensure the news would be shared in a way that protected Catherine's privacy while satisfying public interest. One particularly difficult morning, as Catherine struggled with nausea so severe she couldn't get out of bed, she found all three children quietly sitting beside her, offering comfort in their own ways. George held her hand and told her stories to distract her from feeling unwell. Charlotte had brought her a drawing of flowers with a note that said, "For the best Mummy and the new baby." Louis simply curled up next to her, his presence a source of comfort. In that moment, Catherine felt overwhelmed with gratitude for her family's love and support. The physical challenges of pregnancy were significant, but the emotional strength she drew from her children and husband made everything bearable. She realized that their family's capacity for love and care would naturally expand to embrace their fourth child, just as it had grown with each previous addition. As December approached, Catherine and William began preparing for the public announcement. They had successfully kept their secret for nearly 2 months, allowing them time to process the news privately and ensure everything was progressing normally. The children had proven they could be trusted with important family information, and Catherine felt confident about their ability to handle the increased public attention that would come with the announcement. The decision was made to announce the pregnancy just before the Christmas holidays, allowing the family time together before the inevitable media scrutiny intensified. Catherine's symptoms had stabilized somewhat, though she remained under careful medical supervision. The children were bursting with excitement about finally being able to share their wonderful secret with their grandparents and the world. Their private family journey was about to become a public celebration, but Catherine felt ready for whatever lay ahead. The love and support of her husband and children had carried her through the most challenging weeks, and she knew that same foundation would sustain them through all the changes and excitement that a new baby would bring to their lives. The announcement came on a crisp December morning, just as London was beginning to sparkle with Christmas decorations. Kensington Palace released a carefully crafted statement that was both formal and warm. Their Royal Highnesses the Prince and Princess of Wales are delighted to announce that the Princess of Wales is expecting their fourth child. The baby is due in summer 2026. Their Royal Highnesses are very pleased to share this news with the family. Within minutes of the announcement, news outlets around the world picked up the story. Social media exploded with congratulations and excitement from royal watchers, fellow parents, and supporters from every corner of the globe. The hashtag #RoyalBaby4 began trending internationally as people shared their joy and well wishes for the growing royal family.
Catherine had chosen to make her first public appearance since the announcement at a children's charity event later that week.
As she stepped out of the royal car, the crowd of well-wishers erupted in cheers and applause. "Congratulations, Catherine," someone called out, and soon the entire gathering was offering their excitement and support for the pregnancy. She looked radiant despite battling morning sickness, wearing a flowing navy blue coat that subtly accommodated her changing figure. Her smile was genuine as she accepted bouquets of flowers from children in the crowd, many of whom had drawn pictures of babies and hearts to celebrate the news. One little girl, no older than Charlotte, handed her a handmade card that read, "I hope your baby is as happy as you make us."
The response from other royal families around the world was overwhelmingly positive.
Queen Letizia of Spain called personally to offer congratulations, sharing stories of her own experiences with 2 children. The Swedish royal family sent a beautiful floral arrangement with a note celebrating the continuation of the British royal line. Even President and Mrs. Biden released a statement expressing their joy for the royal family. However, not all reactions were entirely positive. Some critics questioned the timing, suggesting that 4 children might be excessive for a modern royal family focused on environmental consciousness and setting an example for sustainable living. Others raised concerns about the increased security costs and the resources required to support another royal child throughout their lifetime. Catherine and William had anticipated these criticisms and chose to address them indirectly through their actions rather than defensive statements. They made a point of highlighting their environmental initiatives during public appearances and emphasized their commitment to raising children who understood their responsibility to serve others and protect the planet. The children's schools handled the increased attention with remarkable professionalism. George, Charlotte, and Louis found themselves receiving extra congratulations from classmates and teachers, but their schools maintained normal routines to ensure the children felt supported rather than overwhelmed by the public interest in their family. Catherine's parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, were absolutely thrilled about welcoming their 7th grandchild. Carol, in particular, had always been a hands-on grandmother, and the prospect of another baby to spoil filled her with joy. She immediately began planning how to support Catherine through the pregnancy and prepare for the new addition to their extended family. The royal household staff embraced the news with enthusiasm and began making practical preparations for the baby's arrival. The head housekeeper started organizing the nursery renovation, working closely with Catherine to create a space that would be both beautiful and functional. The security team reviewed and updated their protocols to ensure the safety of all family members, including the newest addition.
Medical preparations intensified as Catherine entered her 2nd trimester.
Her team of royal physicians consulted with specialists to ensure they were prepared for any complications that might arise during the pregnancy or delivery. Given Catherine's history with hyperemesis gravidarum and her age, they left nothing to chance in their planning and preparation. International media coverage was extensive but generally respectful. Major publications ran features on Catherine's journey through 4 pregnancies, her evolution as a mother and royal figure, and speculation about how the new baby would fit into the line of succession. Fashion magazines analyzed her maternity style choices, while parenting publications offered expert commentary on managing large families under public scrutiny. The children adapted to the increased public interest with remarkable grace. George, now old enough to understand the broader implications of their royal status, took on an even more protective role toward his mother and siblings. Charlotte delighted in the attention when people asked her about becoming a big sister again, though she remained appropriately private about family details. Louis, ever the charmer, waved enthusiastically at crowds and seemed to enjoy the extra excitement surrounding their family. One particularly touching moment came during a visit to a maternity hospital, where Catherine met with new mothers and expectant families. Her genuine empathy and shared experience created immediate connections with the women she met. One young mother, holding her newborn daughter, told Catherine, "Seeing you go through pregnancy in the public made me feel less alone during my own pregnancy. Thank you for sharing this journey with us." As winter turned to spring, Catherine's pregnancy progressed smoothly despite ongoing challenges with morning sickness. She had learned to manage her symptoms better than during previous pregnancies, partly due to improved medical support and partly because of her own experience and maturity. She continued her royal duties when possible, but wasn't afraid to step back when her health required rest. The nursery renovation became a family project, with each child contributing ideas and helping to prepare for their new sibling. George suggested practical additions like extra storage for toys and clothes. Charlotte focused on decorative elements, choosing colors and patterns that would create a cheerful, welcoming environment. Louis insisted on placing some of his favorite stuffed animals in the nursery so the baby wouldn't feel lonely. Public speculation about the baby's gender reached fever pitch as Catherine's due date approached. Betting shops offered odds on whether it would be a boy or girl, and royal watchers analyzed every appearance for clues about Catherine's preferences or the baby's development. Through it all, Catherine and William maintained their decision to be surprised, adding to the public anticipation. The support from the public remained overwhelmingly positive as Catherine entered her final trimester. Letters and gifts poured in from around the world, from handmade baby clothes to children's books written specifically for the new royal baby. Catherine made a point of acknowledging as many well-wishers as possible, understanding that their pregnancy had become a source of joy and hope for many people during challenging times. As summer approached and Catherine's due date drew near, the entire family felt ready to welcome their newest member. The children could barely contain their excitement, counting down the days until they would meet their baby brother or sister. William had cleared his schedule to be available for the birth and the important first weeks of adjustment for their family. The nursery was complete, painted in soft yellow with white furniture and filled with gifts from family, friends, and well-wishers from around the world. Catherine had packed her hospital bag weeks in advance, having learned from experience the importance of being prepared for the unpredictable nature of childbirth. Most importantly, their family felt stronger and more united than ever. The unexpected pregnancy had reminded them of the precious gift of life and love, and they were ready to expand their hearts once more to welcome another little person into their remarkable family story. The journey from shock and uncertainty to joy and anticipation had been transformative, proving once again that love truly does multiply rather than divide when a family grows. As Catherine settled into the final weeks of her pregnancy, she felt profound gratitude for the journey that had brought them to this moment. Soon, their family of 5 would become 6, and their story would begin a beautiful new chapter filled with all the wonder, chaos, and unconditional love that comes with welcoming a new baby into the world.